On this channel, we provide useful programming information with practical code examples. This time, we will discuss the best practices for iteration in JavaScript. We will delve into the best practices for using for loops to write efficient and readable code. Enabling subtitles will make the code descriptions easier to understand. Please make use of it. First, let's look at an example of choosing the appropriate loop syntax. JavaScript provides multiple looping constructs, each suited for different purposes. For statement is suitable when the number of iterations is predetermined. For if statement is suitable for concisely processing arrays and iterable objects. For in statement is used to iterate over an object's properties. However, it is not suitable for arrays. While statement and do while statement are used to control loops based on conditions. When looping through an array, using a for statement to access the index is common, but the for each method or for if statement may be more readable. For statement allows explicit index management while iterating. For each method uses a callback function to process each element concisely. For if statement is highly readable and allows direct access to each element in an array. Next, let's look at an example of optimizing loop conditions. Since the loop condition is evaluated repeatedly, avoiding unnecessary computations can improve performance. As shown in this example, storing the calculation result in a variable beforehand allows for more efficient loop execution. As shown in this example, reversing the condition can sometimes be more efficient. Next, let's look at an example of optimizing loop processing. Since loop processing is executed repeatedly, avoiding unnecessary calculations can improve performance. In this example, by moving the query selector method outside the loop, unnecessary repeated calculations are eliminated. Next, let's look at an example of being mindful of scope. Use let or const to ensure variables inside the loop have appropriate scope. Since var is limited to function scope, it may cause unexpected behavior. Var has function scope, so after the loop I is 3, and all functions executed by setTimeout output 3. Using let, the I inside the setTimeout callback function refers to a new value for each loop, so 0, 1, 2 inches are output as expected. Next, let's look at an example of improving readability with early exits. To simplify loop processing, use break and continue appropriately to enhance readability. Using break allows you to terminate loop processing midway, skipping all subsequent iterations. Using continue allows you to skip the current loop process and move to the next iteration. Next, let's look at an example of avoiding nesting. Deep nesting makes code harder to read, so aim to keep nesting shallow by using early returns or splitting functionality into functions. In this example, functions are used to reduce nesting. Next, let's look at an example of considering error handling. If there is a possibility of errors occurring within the loop, implement proper error handling. In this example, error handling is performed for processing invalid data, detecting and reporting issues. Next, let's look at an example of important considerations in asynchronous processing. When handling asynchronous processing in loops, using async, await, can result in concise and intuitive code. This code asynchronously fetches URLs from the URLs array one by one and processes the results in JSON format. Using async, await, simplifies asynchronous operations, sequentially retrieving data for each URL and outputting it to the console. Next, let's look at an example of understanding the differences between for, of, and for each in asynchronous processing. When handling asynchronous processing in loops, note the differences in behavior, as shown in this example, between using for, of, with async, await, and using for each. With for, of, the code executes sequentially and waits at the await inside the loop before continuing to the next iteration. On the other hand, for each executes the processing in parallel. The for statement in JavaScript is a simple yet powerful tool. By leveraging the best practices introduced here, you can write efficient and highly readable code. Pay attention to selecting appropriate loop constructs, scope management, error handling, and aim for highly maintainable code. The source code for this video can be downloaded from the official website. If you like, please visit the URL in the description to aid your learning. Your support keeps this channel motivated. Please subscribe to the channel.